Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar hosted by Better Business Bureau. I am Allie Schmidt, Marketplace Manager at your local Better Business Bureau. Today, we have the opportunity to hear from Chris Alcatraz from Employer Services Outreach and Nancy Adams from Claims Outreach, both of them with the Washington State Department of Labor and Industries. If you have any questions at any time throughout the presentation, please type them in the question section and the panelists will address them during the webinar. Now that all of that is out of the way, I want to thank you all for joining us, and the presentation is now yours, Chris.
Thank you, Allie, and thank you everyone for taking time out of your morning to join us. And hopefully you'll find this is a great resource for you. I know we had promised to talk about how we can reduce the financial impact of workers' comp claims. So I'm going to be covering how L&I rates are calculated and how a claim timing will impact that. And then I'll hand over to Nancy Adams, who's joining me this morning, to talk about some of the claims management best practices and how claims are handled here so that you can be aware of what your options are. So as we get moving this morning, just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page with workers' comp in Washington. It is handled here through the Department of Labor and Industries, and it is no-fault industrial insurance. Paid for with premiums, so this is insurance that you're paying into. And one of the things that makes Washington very unique is that workers here do share in the cost of coverage. It is mandatory for all covered workers, and we're currently covering approximately 174,000 Washington employers with over 2.7 million workers. So today we're going to kind of step through how those workers' comp rates are set, how a claim affects your account, and then moving into our hot tips on the claims management best practices. So if you do go to our L&I website, there is a video down in the carousel down at the bottom. You'll see a rate setting video I'm not able to share with you this morning simply because the audio won't share through our webinar. But I am going to talk about those rate setting pieces so that you understand where your rates every year are coming from. So what we call a base rate is set annually for each classification. If we have a classification for your industry, such as restaurants or hospitals or auto mechanics or trucking, your rate is going to be set for your industry for that classification. And then each individual business's policy is further adjusted based on the hours that you've reported and the claims activity, or what we call your experience. Now the video is going to break that down with some artistic license and kind of draw it all out for you, but what we really want to show is that the base rate is going to talk about the general risk associated with your industry. If you are clerical office management staff, you're probably looking at a rate roughly in the 14 cents an hour range. If you're doing construction, it'll be closer to $3.80 and then adjusted further based on your own individual business's experience. The more hours you report, the more hazard exposure there is, and the more accidents we would expect to see. So someone who is reporting 5 full-time employees, we're going to expect far fewer claims and less claims costs than we would if you have 500 employees. So that's why we look at both the hours reported and the claims so that we have an expectation of how risky your workplace is. For every upcoming calendar year, we're going to review a 3-year experience period. So for example, we're closing out 2016 very quickly here. And for next year, 2017 rates, we'll be looking at all of the hours that were worked and reported and any claims that were filed with a date of injury from July 1st, 2012 to June 30th, 2015. So you can see in that example that it takes a while for a claim to affect your account, and we'll see that more clearly in a chart in just a moment. So getting back to some examples for 2016 base rates, we have 4 different classifications here. You can see restaurants are in risk class 3905 and the different rates. So all of this information here is what is provided on your annual rate notice. It's sent out to all new accounts when they're opened or when you buy a business. And also in December, every account gets a new rate notice for the coming year. The different funds are going to be all listed out there for you, and so we're going to spell out what those funds cover because they affect your bottom line differently. The accident fund, the employer pays all of this fund, and that's all of the benefits paid to the worker, whether that's wage replacement, disability, or death benefits paid to the worker and the worker's family. The medical aid fund is for any treatment, medical care, most of the vocational rehabilitation services. All of those costs are shared 50-50 between the employer and the worker. So the worker is paying into the insurance premium for that coverage. The Stay at Work program, which covers reimbursements to motivate employers to bring an injured worker back to light duty. So the Stay at Work program is actually funded with a very tiny amount of premium from each risk class. And those employers that do take advantage of Stay at Work reimbursements, that does not make your rates go up at all. So it is a program we strongly encourage. You're already paying into it. It's a very tiny amount of the insurance that you're paying. And taking advantage of that will not make your rates go up at all. The Supplemental Pension Fund is the cost of living adjustments for what we call extended wage replacement benefits or pension. And that cost is also shared between the employer and the worker. So you can see that it's the benefits paid to the worker or the worker's family directly. All those things that come out of the accident fund will have the biggest impact on your bottom line for several reasons that we'll go into here. One of them is that the employer is paying all of that fund and the worker doesn't share in that cost. So when you get your rate notice, there's 3 primary numbers that you'll be looking for. The total rate is what's due into our agency at the end of each 3-month quarter for every hour worked. The employer share is the cost that you're actually paying out of your bottom line. And the worker share is the amount that you can withhold from the worker's pay in order to pay in for that coverage. So you'll see it does vary based on your industry or classification that the worker is in. If you do have any questions, just as a reminder, type them in. Allie will be sure to get my attention and we will address those as they come up. So when we're rating an individual business's insurance policy with us, we're adjusting it based on what we know about your business. And the reason that we do that is so that you're not paying higher rates because of the behavior of your neighbor or your competitor or the business down the road. We want to make sure what you're paying in does reflect what you're doing to manage your business. It also will encourage accident prevention. The people with the most accidents and the most claims and the most expensive claims are going to be paying the most. So we want to make sure that we're spreading that around in the most fair way that we can. So we're going to give an adjustment, what's called an experience factor or an experience modification factor. But a brand new business that we don't know enough about to make that kind of educated calculation, we're going to give an experience factor of 1. And hopefully we all remember that if you multiply anything by 1, it's the same number. So there's really no impact on base rates. If you're a new business, you'll get that published base rate that's on our website for that industry. When we compare actual to expected costs, those businesses that have claims costs higher than we expected, based on their industry and based on the number of workers they're reporting, we didn't expect that many incidents or that much of an expense, their experience factor is going to go up above a 1. Those that are filing fewer claims or less expensive claims than we would have expected for their industry are going to have an experience factor lower than 1, and it'll actually bring their rates down below the published base rate for them. So a couple of quick lessons on experience rating, and I do say quick because we could talk about rates for 4 hours easily, going into all the details. But there's a few things to be aware of. One is the 25% rule, and that was put into law as a protection against catastrophes, really. We don't want one very bad event to run you out of business. So when we look at adjusting your experience factor cannot go up or down more than 25% from one year to the next. So that's the maximum impact that you would have in fluctuation. The medical only deduction is adjusted every single year. For 2016, it's just over $2,700. And that amount is subtracted from the medical costs of each and every claim, so that that first $2,700 and so doesn't affect your rates at all. And the reason that we do that is we want you to encourage the worker to seek treatment early. So that's going to typically cover your first doctor's visits, most of the diagnostics that are involved, follow-up treatment, medications, and so forth. It's only the larger claims, the ongoing treatment, that start to run above that number, and those are the ones that may impact your claim later on. The claim-free discount, there's a website link there for you, and a link to a video is on that page as well to talk about how you can earn and keep a claim-free discount. But we're going to walk through some of the details on that program now so that you can see what we're talking about. First of all, claim-free discount is a very bad name for this program because it doesn't mean that you've never had a claim. It means you've either not had a claim, or the only claims that have been filed on your business's policy are for medical-only costs. So there's no benefits paid directly to the worker. If it's medical treatment, whether that's doctor, pharmacy, equipment, and so forth for the worker to heal, you can still qualify for a claim-free discount as long as the worker wasn't paid any benefits for disability, wage replacement, and so forth. The discount's going to range from 10 to 40% off. Any of you coupon shoppers are probably aware that the more you spend, the more you save. So if you're used to seeing a coupon for $10 off a $50 purchase or $25 off $100, the claim-free discount works similarly. The more we expect to spend to cover your claims, the more of a discount we're willing to give or able to give if you don't take advantage of the worker benefits and you only have medical-only claims. So the amount of the discount is based on what your expected losses would be. It is published into Washington state law, so it is a fixed number, and we simply look you up on the chart to calculate what the discount would be. Just a quick reminder that state work reimbursements don't count as claims costs, so they don't increase your rates. If you take advantage of the state work reimbursements and you get those wage replacement, not wage replacement, but you get the 50% reimbursement for wages and so forth for bringing a worker back to light duty, you can still qualify for the claim-free discount. So again, there's the website to get more details. A real quick look at two different employers and how they've gone about their claims management. If you have an accident prevention program, a plan in place to prevent and reduce injuries, and a return to work plan that you walk through if something does go wrong, and you're able to keep a claim at only medical costs, you can still qualify for a claim-free discount. So as Nancy's going to talk about further, how you manage that claim if something does happen, having light duty and other policies in place is going to make the biggest difference for you. So employer B that has compensable claims, any benefits paid to the worker, whether they're getting wage replacement because they can't be on the job, or whether they're getting permanent disability benefits, pension, and so forth. Death benefits, anything paid to the worker and the worker's family are what we would consider a compensable claim. So here's a list of the type of things that we'd be looking at which point you're no longer eligible for a claim-free discount because anything's paid out of that accident fund that we saw earlier on our base rates. So this chart, we're going to do a real quick explanation of what it means and how it can help you understand your rates. If you'd like to see this information in a different format, I can go ahead and get my email address out there. Oops. So we're going to call it a claims date of injury chart. And we're going to send that out to everyone. My email address is on there. If you'd like a copy of this, I'd be happy to send it to you along with some other links that we're going to talk about today. But really what I want to explain is that one of the biggest mysteries behind the rates is not just how your experience factor is calculated for your business's policy, but also what happens if I were to, well, I don't know, maybe have a overhead cabinet fall on me while I'm sitting here doing a webinar this morning. It is September 14th, 2016. And if I look at my chart, that's going to put me way down in this lower column here. And it's going to show that it will affect my employer's rates for the year 2019, 2020, and 2021. So a claim will stay on the employer's experience rating for no more than 3 years. Even if that claim is still ongoing, this is how long we look at it for that annual rating. And even if my claim is very simple and closed quickly, we'll still look at it for those 3 years to determine if there's any impact on my employer's rates. So some people might be wondering, why on earth does it take so long for it to affect my employer? Why are we not seeing that until 2019? And what we really want to think about is, how are we going to know or predict what those claims costs really are? So it could be a fairly simple ankle sprain, but if there's a fracture and if there's other complications to an ankle fracture, maybe it's age, maybe it's other conditions that the worker already has, we don't necessarily know the day of an ankle injury how much of an impact that's going to have on the worker's life, their ability to return to work, their ability to earn their wages, or how long it's going to take to heal and whether or not surgery is needed. So we don't make that decision on the first day a claim is filed. That claim, we're going to wait until it hits this experience rating calendar year before we really start looking at that claim's cost to determine what the employer's rates need to be. Excuse me. Over on the right, you're going to see that this is based on the claim value as of June 1st prior to the rating year. So what does that mean? If I'm injured today, September 14th, 2016, it's not going to affect my employer's rates till 2019. But in order to do all of the math and calculations needed to develop rates for over 174,000 business accounts, we start that math June 1st, 2018 to develop the 2019 rates, and everyone would get them in the mail in December. So at that date, we take a snapshot of what the claims costs are. And if that claim is still active and ongoing, then we're going to be using the estimates that we have out there and the case reserve amounts that we have set aside for that claim. So down at the bottom, we just kind of have a flip of the same chart. And if we're looking this time by the year that your rates are set for, you can see the dates for the date of injury and the claims and the hours that we're looking at. So for this year, 2016, the rates that folks are paying now are based not only on 2016 base rates, but it's based on all the hours reported for their workers and any claims, all the claims costs from July 1st, 2011 to June 30th, 2014. And that's where a lot of the problem lies. So when folks are getting their rate notices in December and they open that up and they take a look and those numbers kind of surprise them, whether they go up or down, people are normally surprised because they don't remember or they don't know what dates we're really looking at to do those calculations. So I'm sure most people that are joining us this morning don't remember where they were on June 30th, 2014, but that activity is what's impacting you this year. So if you do want a copy of this chart, or if you want a further explanation on this, certainly send me an email. You can also send me any questions on what we've talked about this morning. You're welcome to do that. But I'd be happy to send this over to you so you can keep it handy in your files, and you'll know if something happens today when it will affect you, and when you get your rate notice where that information is coming from. So the bottom line, we've talked about several things so far this morning. We talked about base rates for your industry, which is based on your risk class. We've talked about experience rating, the claim-free discount, the fact that workers pay into coverage here in Washington. And this slide is going to kind of pull some of that information together for you. So in this example, not sure if you can see my mouse moving here, but in this example, we have 3 different employers. The first business, reading across the top, we have both the worker and the employer share. All 3 businesses are dealers and auto repair shops. Their risk classification is 3411. The very top row is experience rating of 1, or a base rate. That's for a brand new business that we didn't know enough about to do the experience calculations. Their total rate for this year is just over $1.21 per hour. And then in the next 3 columns, we've broken that down for you. You can see the employer's portion per hour, approximately 97 cents. The worker's portion per hour is the remaining 24 cents and change. And for a full-time worker, we've broken that out for you. And for 1 full-time worker for an entire year, that's the column over on the right. And you can see that this auto dealership for 1 full-time worker is paying over $1,800. The worker's paying just under $500 per year. And if we can make that visible to the worker, that the incidents, the claims costs will affect their bottom line as well, that's where we see the workers getting more involved in your safety program, and hopefully less roughhousing in the workplace. And those types of behaviors can really be impacted when we can show people the bottom line. Our next employer example, the set here in the middle, we've given a very modest 10% claim-free discount. So they don't have any compensable claims, no benefits paid to the worker. There's just medical-only claims or no claims at all. Based on their reported hours and how much we expected to have for claims costs, they've been given a 10% discount. That drops their hourly rate to just over $1.10 per hour. And if we rotate that out, here's where we are for 1 full-time worker. And you can see the savings. And if we multiply that out over 5 employees or 10 employees, you can really see how it adds up. Now down at the bottom, we have kind of our worst case scenario. We mentioned very quickly earlier, there's a 25% rule. So your experience factor cannot go up or down more than 25% one year to the next. So if this particular employer had an experience factor of 1 last year, and in that 3-year rating period that we're looking at, there was something catastrophic going on, the maximum their experience rating would be at this year is a 1.25. We multiply that out, and they're now paying over $2,300 for 1 worker. And here is how you can see that just staying in business can be very, very difficult the higher your experience rating goes. If you're competing for bids or you're competing on your pricing and you're having to roll in those additional workers' comp costs, it's going to be much harder for you to be competitive. Now this information, workers' compensation coverage, every business that has an account with us here at L&I, what risk classifications they're in, so what industry they're in and what coverage they have to cover what activities, their experience factor, whether it's at a base rate of 1 or higher or lower than that, the worker share and the employer share is all on our public website. I don't believe I have that tool linked in our webinar here. So I am going to put it on here. Check your rates at, it's lni.wa.gov/verify. And I'm going to put that out there because not only is it important that you check and see what we're pushing out to the public about your business and your experience factor, you can also check on your competitors or anyone you're looking at doing business with. It's not going to give you details as far as their workers or their claims or how much they're paying per quarter. It's going to give you their base rate, their rates per year and their worker share. so that you can see, just as a general rule of thumb, are their costs lower than yours? Are they higher than yours? Does that give you some indication of their safety and their claims history? So it can be a really good thing to check. I'm going to move on to one more example. This time in the construction industry, we've got the same three businesses. Instead of automotive mechanics, we're looking at new wood frame buildings. So this is residential construction, risk class 0510. We have three businesses again. The top one is just at base rate for a brand new business, moving down to a modest 10% claim-free discount, and then the worst case scenario of a 25% increase this year at the bottom. When we multiply those out, construction's a more expensive industry. So new wood frame construction is paying over $5.30 an hour this year, over $8,000 for one full-time worker. The worker's paying in over $1,800 themselves. So when we multiply out a claim-free discount, and you can see a savings of approximately $800 per worker for just a modest discount, it can make a big difference for your business. So I strongly suggest taking a look at our claim-free discount website that's linked in this webinar to get more information about that program and to do all that you can to qualify. If you do qualify for a claim-free discount, it will automatically be calculated in there. It's nothing that you need to apply for. But the more you can educate yourself about your own business and your own claims management practices, and also your claims history, you're going to have a better understanding of whether or not you qualify. Our worst case scenario in this one, with an experience rating of 1.25, is going to push the cost for one single full-time worker up over $10,000 a year. So I throw this in there. It's not the highest risk class we have. Framing is higher. Framing, even base rate, is over $7 an hour. Logging is over $18 an hour. So obviously, the higher risk for the industry, the higher the base rate, the bigger difference this experience rating calculation is going to have. It's just a bigger impact. But if we can push this information out there and we can show the workers what kind of a difference, that's the conversations we like to get started. When you're having your safety meetings, when you're having your staff meetings, and you can talk to folks, have them take a look at their pay stubs, have them take a look at what they're paying in for their workers' comp deduction. You can post your rates publicly if you choose to do that. You can post the workers' share. And if they understand that they're paying in and there's a difference of nearly $600 depending on which side of these examples they're falling on, just for the three businesses we've made up for this morning, that can make a big impact. That's somebody's birthday present, or that's somebody's holiday trip, or somebody's car payment. So we want to make sure that you've got the information to have those conversations with your staff. So you can find a lot of tools for controlling your rates and learning more about our workers' compensation rate setting on the Control My Rates webpage. And if you read across that top row, I know Nancy's going to be joining me here in just a moment to give you some more information on handling those claims when they do happen. But if we look at the top row, you're going to see on this one website all of the different things that I've talked about so far this morning. The claim-free discount, what it is, how you can earn it, how you can lose it, how you can get it back. There's a quick video on there that'll explain the two different businesses we saw, employer A and B, and how they handled their claims. Calculating your rate, that'll walk you through some of the information I've shared with you this morning, base rates, experience factors, and so forth. And the Rate Setting 101 video, if you're still looking for an overview of how we do workers' comp, that's a great place to start. It's a very short, about a 5-minute video there. And then the Claim and Account Center, which I'm sure Nancy's probably going to mention for you, is linked there at the top as well. So this is a great place to start and a great page on our website to bookmark, to come back to for all of these resources. So quick recap on the part that I've covered for you so far this morning. If you know how your rate compares to the base rate, and you go to that Verify tool on our website, and thank you, Allie, for putting Control My Rates on our chat as well. If you go there and you understand, you're going to understand how your workers' comp costs are affecting your ability to be competitive in your marketplace. If you know when a claim will affect you, or if you shoot me over an email for a copy of that claims chart, that claims impact chart, we'd be happy to get that to you so that it takes away the mystery of getting surprised when you get that envelope in the mail in December. Obviously, knowing how to earn and keep a claim-free discount, well, that could sure help, because anything we can do to lower your rates is a good thing. And then using our consultants, I did put that on there. You'll see them on our Control My Rates site. I believe Nancy's got some more tips for you on how we can help you manage claims to save money. So if you do have any questions, feel free again to either email us or send them on over in a chat. We're going to go ahead and switch presenters and have Nancy join us now to talk about the claims management side of how we can help you lower the financial impact of your workers' comp costs. Thank you.
Well, good morning. My name is Nancy Adams. I am the communication and claims outreach person for claims administration. We're going to do a brief overview of how to manage the claim and not let the claim manage you. When light duty is not an option, ways to financially support the workers during recovery. You hear a lot about wage replacement or what we consider time loss. That is your most expensive option. This affects your experience rating 37 times higher than a medical-only claim. This pays 60 to 75% of the wages, depending on dependents and marital status. We also have loss of earning power, or what we call LEP. It pays up to 80% of lost earnings, and it affects your experience rating. And we have kept on salary, which we consider KOS. This is where the employer pays the full salary while the worker recovers at home, and this does not affect your experience rating. Things to remember with the KOS claim is that they need to receive ongoing payments as though they were still employed with you. So if you paid every 2 weeks prior to the injury, they should still be receiving a paycheck every 2 weeks. Good news right now, time loss claims are trending down. In 2015, we had just over 108,000 new claims filed. Of those, 16,000 were denied. 92,000, just over almost 93, were medical-only claims. And 16,000 of those were new time loss claims. And our average day of time loss paid is 62 days. As Christina mentioned earlier, the tool that really helps you as an employer is the My LNI. This allows you to review your business licenses, manage your claims. As you can see over here, it will let you know how many claims you have, what the status of those claims are. You can file your reports from here, and you can receive safety and health information. Within My LNI, you can also find the Claimant Account Center. It's a link, and this is where you can also manage your claims from. So workers' compensation realities. What about the workers who do not return to work? The reality of it is 5% of injured workers become chronically disabled, and they use 85% of all of the resources. The majority of chronically disabled workers are non-catastrophics that are medically uncomplicated conditions, such as low back sprains and carpal tunnel syndrome. 45 fatalities in 2015, and just over 1,000 pensions were awarded in 2015. This chart explains the likelihood of returning to work after a lengthy time off. We indicate here that at 12 weeks of time loss, the worker has only a 50% chance of returning to work, and this significantly decreases as time goes on. So understanding claims to control your costs, the benefits covering only medical expenses, or what we call medical-only claims, means that they had no time missed from work beyond the first 3 days following the injury. Benefits covering wage replacement or time loss claims means if an injured worker does not return to work, then the time loss benefits start on the 4th day following an injury. If the worker is still disabled on the 14th day, then we will go back and pay the first 3 days following the injury. This is the most expensive portion of a claim, time loss is, and the goal is to keep workers connected to a job through light or modified duty. The employer-employee relationship is critical to resolving claims at the lowest possible cost. This starts with your hiring process. Hire wisely, check references if you can. I know that in this day and age, a lot of employers no longer will do references, but we still recommend doing reference checks. Provide written job offers with a description of the work to be performed. Be very detailed in really what that job entails. So if they have to lift 50 pounds continuously throughout the day, your job offer description should clearly state that. You can ask them, do they have the physical abilities to do the job? And keep good records. Remember that the medical should not be a part of the personnel file. You also don't want to suppress claims. RCW 5128010 says that an employer can't discourage claim filing and that you cannot or should not pay for medical on your own. And you want to offer return to work options. This is what is going to keep the employee in that continued work pattern and help them not become disabled, not only mentally and physically. The employer report of accident on file fast. We want your story and point of view. You can file your report at the link www.lni.wa.gov/filefast. It's important. You want to review your worker's report for accuracy and completeness. This is accessible through My LNI and the Claimant Account Center. We want to know if you question the claim. We need you to report wages. Even if you feel that this is a medical-only claim, it's really important for us to document what the wages were at the time of injury. A lot of claims, when they're first filed, are not time loss claims, but a person does have several years to file a reopening on a claim, and when they come back and file a reopening, if we never establish what those wages were at the date of injury, we're asking you at a later date. So it's much better to have it documented when it's fresh and you know exactly what their wages are. This includes any overtime. You want to, if they do regular and continuous overtime, you want to add that in. Send any additional information. If you have anything, the incident report, the investigation report, and make sure to include the claim number on anything that you send to the department. Your protest and appeal rights. The first thing we recommend is before you protest any decision the department makes is to call the claims manager and ask what the basis was for the decision. If you still disagree, submit a written protest within 60 days of the receipt of the order. You have 60 days by law to protest any order that we issue. Explain in detail why you feel that the decision is unfair. Supply any additional information you may think may help us in our evaluation. You can also file your protest by secure message online through the Claimant Account Center, or mail your protest to the claims section at the address that's on the legal order, or you also have the right to appeal directly to the Board of Industrial Insurance Appeals. This is an overview of what is required in order to have a workplace injury. By law, each claimant needs to meet these 3 criteria in order for a claim to be allowed. It has to have happened during the course of employment. It has to meet the legal definition of an injury, which is a sudden tangible happening of a traumatic nature, producing an immediate or prompt result and occurring from without, and such physical conditions result therefrom. And it also has to have a medical opinion on a more probable than not basis that is caused by work, which means 50% or more. The criteria for an occupational disease. An occupational disease is something that occurs over time rather than from a fixed event. It arises naturally and proximately out of employment. It has to arise from the job requirement rather than merely the workplace or everyday life. We also need objective medical findings that can be seen, felt, or measured. And the doctor has to declare on a more probable than not basis the injury was caused by work or occupational disease, 50% or more. So which workers need assistance? For this chart, I have fiscal year 2012. Out of 92,000 claims that were closed, we had 73% of our claims which were medical only. Out of that, 15% of them were time loss claims that went with early return to work and or voc services, and 12% of our time loss claims that had return to work without any voc services. On the right-hand side here, you can see out of all of our voc, this is the percentages of what each person gets. Typically, we have 7% of those claims that went to early return to work or early intervention. 6% went to AWA or ability to work assessments, and only 2% of our overall claims ever went to plan or retraining. Permanent partial disability. If the injury results in a loss of body function, the worker is typically paid an award at the time of claim closure. The PPD results in a compensable claim. The amount of the award is established by the legislature, and the percentage of loss is established by the American Medical Association's Guide to Evaluation of Permanent Impairment and the Washington Administrative Code Categories of Impairment. Remember to use your free consultation services. Here at the department, we offer a lot of different options for employers. For safety, risk, or ergo consultations, we have Bobby Hanna with her number and her email address there. Claims outreach, I can help you with any of your claims issues that you might have going on. If you feel there's something happening on a claim that you need help with, you can email me and I can look into that claim. Early return to work assistance, Jerry Parrish is available. Stay at work and preferred worker reimbursement programs, Joyce Allen. And small business liaison, Rose Gunderson. And done pretty early. Anyone have questions?
I think one thing, Nancy, this is Allie, that popped into my head was just that last slide and that small business liaison. What all does that include, and what could someone expect from that specific consultant?
Okay. I'm going to, Christina can't hear the questions, and so I'm going to repeat it so she can hear.
Oh, great.
The question is, Rose Gunderson's position, the small business liaison, what kind of services does she offer? Okay, she's going to answer that for you, so I'm going to hand this over to her. Hold on.
Perfect.
Thank you, folks. So the last time we did a webinar, we had 3 presenters sharing 1 telephone. So I appreciate your cooperation and patience while we trade off here. So Rose Gunderson is our small business liaison, and her predecessor, who's now gone on to run another organization. What the small business liaison does is they can really be your point of contact to help you as a small business that probably doesn't have full-time HR staff or full-time let's deal with the government staff. So you can call up Rose's office, and she and her assistant Kayla can help you navigate any of our L&I systems and programs. And if it turns out that your question is not L&I specific, so it's not contractor registration, workers' comp claims, that type of thing that we handle here, Rose has counterparts at other state agencies as well. And actually, if you go to our L&I website, we can see how quickly I can do this for you here. I can actually show you. So let me go to our L&I website real quick. Sorry, normally I have it up, and I must have forgotten this morning. So here we are, lni.wa.gov. Right on our homepage, you're going to see, this is the Verify tool that I mentioned. Here's the Claim and Account Center that Nancy was talking about. But if you click on our little friend here for business, you're going to find all kinds of information to help you run your business. And hopefully I'm not going too fast here for you, but right down here at the bottom of the list, it says Help for Small Business Owners. And you can see a little more about Rose and Kayla, news and mailing list, top 20 questions they get, and what they can do to help you navigate. And they actually have a list over here under the Small Business Tools, other Washington State Agency liaisons. And they can get you contact information, whether it's the Department of Revenue or anything like that. So this is one of our most popular resources when we're out in the field. Secretary of State, Department of Revenue, Employment Security. Most of our major state agencies have a small business liaison to help you understand the language we speak. So I'm afraid that was a bit of a lengthy answer, but it's a great resource for you. We want to make sure you know that it's available.
That's great information. Thank you, Chris. And we'll just leave a few more minutes here for any questions to roll in. I'm also going to submit a poll out to the group to see how effective and informative this information was. I think for anyone that is starting from square one with all of this, it's really been beneficial to hear from you guys. I really appreciate your input and your expertise.
Oh, absolutely. And while we're waiting for another question from the audience or giving people a chance to answer the poll, I'm actually going to ask Nancy if she can give us a couple of examples of like permanent partial disability. When we're talking about loss of function, what kind of an injury are we talking about? And maybe that'll help open our eyes a little bit so we know what to watch for.
Okay, she gave me no warning on that question. No, I'm just kidding. So permanent partial disability. Typically what you're going to see is when a claim has had surgery. So if you had somebody who fell and fractured their wrist and they went in and because of that wrist fracture, they now have some sort of loss of function, either in the hand or in the movement of the wrist. That is something we would typically see. Somebody who sprains a knee ends up having to have a knee surgery after that and has a loss of function because of that knee surgery. That would be a permanent partial disability. We also do sometimes see it with back claims that are non-surgical. There is a possibility under state law that if somebody had even a pre-existing back injury and then they re-injured themselves down the road, if they had never received any permanent partial disability previously, they could be rated with a loss of function under a claim that doesn't seem as significant, but we don't see that as often, but it could happen. Typically though, it's always going to be your claims that are surgical, although we have had some carpal tunnel come back and they say there's no rateable impairment after the surgery, that they're actually better than they were previous to the surgery. So that happens too. So, but those are our common permanent partial disabilities.
Great, thank you. I think that is really helpful information. All right, well, I've concluded our poll and we haven't received any more questions. I do want to suggest that anyone that has more questions that they weren't able to get answered or were afraid to ask, I will direct you to both Nancy and Chris. And I know Chris already put in her email address. So Nancy, if you wouldn't mind going and typing that in the chat box, so people have access to that, that would be great. And all in all, I'd just like to thank all of you for participating today. And thank you again to Nancy and Chris from the Washington State Department of Labor and Industries. This webinar will be posted on BBB's YouTube page as well as our BBB webinar page later this week or beginning of next week. If you'd like to rewatch or share this information with others, maybe you work with others and this information you'd like to get out.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity.
Absolutely. I hope you have a great day. Please feel free to contact BBB with any further questions at 206-431-2227. Goodbye. Have a good day.